Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Can we have a approval of the minutes from January 7th?
Approval of the minutes of January 7, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. New public business. We have a lot on the agenda tonight, so anybody with new public business, hopefully you'll try to stay to the 2 minutes. Mr. Bradstreet?
Aye. Your signature, please.
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. At a prior meeting, David Mills brought up a subject that the boards and the public need to behave themselves while they're here, try to remain in, I don't know, decorum. I won't say what used to be the verbiage that used at the Richmond Holton schools. I don't want to be offensive, but I made some copies, I've highlighted some sections. Perhaps they might be a basis to get started, not the final result, but to get started on the efforts that the select board member Mills was thought, and I do think was important.
Thank you, Bill. Coley Rybicki.
Thank you, Colby.
During the conference room. I think I made enough copies.
Thank you. Extra.
Thank you.
Hi. Paper doesn't like me.
I'll give you all the extras.
Oh, thanks.
Good evening, Coley Rybicki, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 5. At the last Select Board meeting, the chair asked Rodney to post a job description for the town manager on the town website and encouraged us to go take a look at it. I have looked at it and also went to the search firm's website to see what content they had there. The paperwork I just handed you is the job description from the town website and a snippet from the search firm's website on their content for the ideal candidate. In my 30-plus HR career, these are some of the weakest job descriptions I have seen. Why? Both do a good job of describing Danvers and describing the soft skill attributes that we seek. I would argue that the ability to collaborate, lead, and negotiate, amongst other attributes defined within these documents, are inherent qualities of any successful senior executive at this level. What is lacking is the definition of the knowledge and experience of what we are seeking in the ideal candidate. Having that defined will attract those qualified candidates that we seek and will act as a screening tool for the screening committee as they begin to review applicants. Never presenting an issue without a potential solution, I suggest the town amend what is in the public eye to include skill and experience as follows. And that'll be on the third page that's in your packet. And I'll read it for the public and those people viewing at home. A bachelor's or master's degree in public policy or related experience with 10 years of experience. Oversight of a municipality with 300 employees and a budget of $125 million. Experience with union negotiations and management of those unions. Experience with town-owned and provided utilities, such as electricity, water, and sewer. Short and long-term strategy development and implementation. For example, development of an information technology plan that addresses the modernization of enterprise business processes. Experience with a significant municipal event that impacted the whole community and involved dealing with state and federal authorities and the media. And experience with regionalization experience with such topics as waste management and water resources. The other thing I'll mention that I didn't see in the description that typically you see is the ability to pass a background check, credit, criminal, and education. I don't know whether the search firm is going to be doing that, but if it's not in the contract, I would strongly suggest that the town contract with an entity that does this for a living. And as a final suggestion, when I was doing my research, Lexington had 3 finalists for their position whose names are in the newspaper. We know who they hired, but it might be worth speaking with those finalists to see if our position would interest them. Thank you.
Thank you, Coley. And I will confirm that in the contract, they will do a background check of the finalists before they come to us. Did you hear me, Coley?
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you for this work. And obviously, we'll share this with the rest of the screening committee for their information. Anyone else, new business? Mark?
Mr. Rybicki, I congratulate you because you're one of the few, and I have also gone through the description that it was totally inadequate, so thank you for doing
Mark, would you
that
speak
job.
to the chair, please?
Yes, sir. I have 4 items that I'd like to bring up to the board. And one is as a result of December 17th meeting that we had at this room. And you requested me to provide a Danvers proposed submittal to the Danvers Select Board proclamation regarding the current and future developments at Beverly Airport. I want to report to the Board of Selectmen that a proclamation or guidance or on the Beverly Airport has been completed and submitted to the chairman for action. Need immediate action due to current progress and develop actions. Note, no new legal action is being undertaken that I know of. The current status of the appointing of the vacancy on the Board of Beverly Airport Commissioners is still vacant. That's been over 4 months, and we need to get that position filled. Or, as you requested in the past meetings, that there be a negotiation to improve the number of commissioners for the town of Danvers, so they'll have a representative government in the airport facility. So there is a vacancy due to resignation of a Danvers commissioner 4 months ago. Action of the commission are proceeding without representation. We have 1 individual that comes to the meetings.
Correction. Aaron Henry is still
I-
a member of that until he's replaced.
That's what I
Oh, there are
was
2.
just going to add, because Aaron Henry has been overextended on his assignments, and that's the reason he resigned. And he has been a participant right along, but I think we need somebody that has the Danvers interest at heart. Aaron is too busy for that position. Town meeting actions. In the May 2024, requested that an environmental report be prepared by the Beverly Airport to identify and remedy the effects of on the Danvers community. Noise, air, water, hazardous contaminants imposed on Danvers residents are evident throughout the airport, and they are going through some serious environmental issues that need to be addressed. The last item is not Beverly related. I have been interested as a electrical engineer, a construction manager, and all that, on the solar panel array that's been proceeding at the, what do you call it, landfill facility? I call it the dump. And is becoming a $12 million revenue source. But we are neglecting the monitoring and the administration of the funds that have been allocated. There was $4.5 million in the first installment in '22, and then another 1.2 or $2.2 million installment that was voted on last year. We need a business plan of what that facility is going to be and how it's going to be handled. We have an exposure of $12.5 million that we need to monitor for the residents of this town. So all I ask is, and I've been asking for this thing for 3 years now, what is the business plan and how is the electric division going to develop this site after it's backfilled? Because right now, all we're doing is adding contaminated or semi-contaminated soil into the landfill facility to level it on the Peabody side. And I'm just wondering, what are the plans? And I would really, really would like to have someone give us an explanation of what the business plan is and how it's going to work and how much it's going to cost. That's all I have for now, but I would seriously, I have forwarded the Danvers Select Board proclamation that you asked for in the December meeting, and I would really want to get that disposed of as soon as possible because Beverly Airport is proceeding without Danvers' input or recommendation.
Thank you, Mark.
Recommendations. Thank you.
I took your email and forwarded to Mr. Conley for his review as well as town council.
Well, I think, if I may, it needs the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, as you call yourself now, Select Board needs to defend the residents that are being affected in this matter. And the thing is, we and the residents have been pleading this case for years, and there's been no recommendation or proclamation from the Board of Selectmen. You listen, but we need to do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else, new public business? Okay. The board will receive a quarterly update from the Danvers Police Department. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening. I do have some PowerPoint slides here. I'm not sure what the best way to people to see this. It's kind of a,
Yeah, they can turn the seats around,
like this tray of seats.
twist their necks, or move.
Present tonight, I have Lieutenant Rob Sullivan is here. He's working the evening shift tonight. Also, speaking in a few moments would be District Attorney Paul Tucker, and with him is Sharon Lewis as Chief of Staff. Since the last meeting, I want to give update. We provide this to the Select Board as well as to the community through social media. On November 26th, 2024, Essex County District Attorney's Office and the Danvers Police Department released a joint statement regarding the identity of 4 Danvers residents who were indicted by the grand jury. In addition to those 4 indictments, 2 additional juveniles under the age of 14 were also charged in the incident. Altogether, the 6 were charged with assault and battery on a police with intellectual disabilities, assault and battery to intimidate based on race, religion, or disability, which is the hate crime statute, and 2 counts of assault and battery dangerous weapon for a bicycle and a shod foot. All 6 have been arraigned in Salem Juvenile Court, and the case is still pending in the court system. Some of this stuff that we continue to do as a department to address issues is also continue to spend extra time in the square after school, especially during the warmer weather and during early release days. After the last meeting, there was discussion about the conditions of CVS in the square and the activities in CVS. So that Friday morning, I actually went down and met with the manager, Charlie. He was very thankful. We discussed some of his concerns, and we also offered to work with him to help identify the use that were causing the problems. He did mention it's a very, very busy store. A lot of kids come in. Some kids are just playing loud and a little disruptive, and they respond well to when they're directed to behave. But there were a couple of people that were causing some serious problems. So we continue to work with him to identify those individuals and address those issues. The Boston Children's Hospital has contacted us and would like to continue their safety incentive program this spring and summer. Last year, they provided tokens from Cookie Monster that could be given out by the officers who observe either safe bike riding or helmet use. About 2 weeks ago, Superintendent Bauer and I initiated a conversation with Mass DOT to partner with them on numerous programs for the rest of the school year. This includes a bike safety program in the elementary middle schools. Currently, they're doing a promotional yard sign, asking art programs to submit designs for lawn signs to encourage wearing bicycle helmets. That's been sent out to all the schools and art teachers. And also, we hope to participate with the Massachusetts Bike Walk or Roll to School Day. What that is the schools get together and they walk the school with school personnel and police. And then next week at Danvers, we'll participate in the legal updates training with John Sheft. One of the topics included will be bicycle enforcement efforts. More recently, want to address this before we go into a review of 2024. On Wednesday, January 8th at 2025, at approximately 5:15 p.m., an armed robbery occurred at the CVS pharmacy located at 1 Maple Street in the square. A white male wearing a black face mask, dark colored jacket, tan pants, sunglasses, and black shoes entered the store brandishing a firearm and ordered the pharmacist to give him numerous prescription narcotics. The male exited through the back of the store, fled on foot towards Cone Street and Berry Street area. Officers responded, conducted a thorough search with the assistance of the Essex County Sheriff's Department K-9 unit. And the incident remains active investigation by the Danvers Police Department, detectives, Mass State Police Crime Lab, and the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force. I'll go into kind of a review of 2024, and then moving forward, we can do quarterly updates as far as kind of the activities in town. So in 2024, Danvers police officers responded to 24,720 calls for service. Pretty consistent with numbers from 2023. Officers conducted 2,562 directed patrols during the year. A directed patrol is identified area within the officer's beat where they spend extra time based on either past crimes or predicted activities. Officers conducted 544 community policing initiatives, and they responded to 2,225 medical aids. During 2024, Danvers police officers made 198 arrests, issued 206 criminal summonses, requested 61 criminal hearings, requested 22 warrants, placed 13 individuals in protective custody, and responded to 226 calls for mental health crises. Some of the top call locations for 2024, our top is Liberty Tree Mall, which consists of Target, Kohl's, Nordstrom Rack, and then some of the surrounding parking lots. There are 999 calls for service at the mall. Endicott Plaza, 376 calls for service, and then Recovery Centers of America, 354 calls for service. In 2024, Danvers responded to 1,163 motor vehicle crashes. Of those crashes, 191 were hit and runs, 185 resulted in personal injuries, 12 involved pedestrians, 9 involved bicycles, and we had 1 fatal motorcycle accident. Most common accident locations in 2024, Elliott at 128, Endicott Street at 128, and then Andover Street at Palmer Ave. Traffic enforcement, Danvers conducted 554 selective enforcements. During the year, 833 motor vehicle citations were issued, 670 of them were warnings, and 112 resulted in either criminal complaints or arrests. Most common violations would be speeding, next would be crosswalk violations, and the third would be stop sign violations. 2024, officers responded to 148 domestic-related incidents, resulting in 33 arrests. We also responded to 105 simple assaults, 36 aggravated assaults, and 7 indecent assaults. Regarding some larcenies in the community, responded to 290 shoplifting incidents. 39 incidents involved larceny over $1,200. 34 incidents involved larceny under $1,200. We had 35 stolen motor vehicles, 20 burglaries of B&Es, 14 larcenies from vehicles, and 9 larcenies from buildings. In 2024, we had 105 cases of fraud reported to the police department. Some of the common activities are the grandparent scam, where an individual receives a call from a third party saying that their grandson or granddaughter was arrested and that they need bail money, and they request usually cash payment to pay for their bail. Typically, once they get that money, if they do, they'll call back again saying, oh, we made a mistake, the bail went up because you were too late, and they try to fraudulently obtain money through that. Sweepstakes and lottery scams, again, you've won so much money, but we need a % down to process the fee. You'll get it all back, and that happens often. And then phishing scams, which people are looking for passwords, account numbers, and social security numbers. Some of the common red flags that we try to discuss with the public is requests for payments and gift cards. The IRS does not take Apple Pay or red dot cards or green dot cards. Requests for large sums of cash. Unusual home locations for pickup. If they're saying, hey, you owe money to the federal government, we'll come to you and get it, kind of a red flag. And most recently, we've seen an increase in the use of Bitcoin machines. These ATMs, once the money is deposited, it's very difficult to actually track where it goes and try to get that money back. Discuss a little bit about staffing levels. Currently, the staffing levels for the Danvers Police Department is 47 officers. That's from the first patrolman down up to the chief. We currently have 2 vacancies created by retirements. Of those 2 vacancies, we hope to have 1 student officer enrolled in the NEC Academy, which starts on March 3rd, 2025. We have 3 recruits currently attending Linfield Police Academy. They'll graduate on February 28th, and they'll begin an 8-week field training program. We have 1 officer who has been deployed in the Middle East since last April. We're hopeful that she'll return to duty hopefully in late April, early May this year. And we currently have 3 officers on long-term sick leave. We are currently in the promotional process, the ranks of sergeant and lieutenant. So back in September, the officers took a written exam through civil service. In December, they completed their assessment center. And we're hoping either this week or next week, we'll get the certified promotional list from civil service. And with the assistance of the town manager, we can hopefully move forward and fill a couple of promotional positions within the department. National accreditation, we continue to maintain our accreditation through CALIA. Through this process, we must maintain 398 standards. Those 398 standards, 330 are mandatory, and we get to choose 68 of those additional standards. Between October 4th and October 11th of this past year, we successfully completed our 3rd year annual review. During this assessment, 132 standards were reviewed by a CALIA assessor. Some specific areas of interest that we discussed with the assessor was our communications division, detainee management, and our recruitment and selection process. Our 4th and final annual review will begin in April of this year, followed by an on-site by an assessor. And then in March of 2026, we'll attend a conference where we'll stand in front of the commission and hopefully be reaccredited for, I think it's our 11th accreditation process. Feasibility study. This past year during 2024, through assistance of the town manager, we began a feasibility study to address the department's cell block, booking room, and property evidence areas. So we worked with GNAP architects to develop a strategic improvements to the department's booking room, cell block, and property and evidence room. The police station was built in 1977, right around there. There was a large addition built in 2017, which now houses our training room and our dispatch center. But we're really seeing the need to actually improve our property and evidence rooms as well as our cell block and our booking area. So we worked with DPW and the architects to develop options to modernize and maximize usable space while maintaining the building's existing footprint to reduce costs. So we're hoping to see this project added to the capital projects list in the near future. So I want to go through a couple of community engagements, activities that we've done over the past 3 months. We didn't go to the whole year because it would get too long, but we wanted to go over a couple of activities that we've done recently. Back during October, during the Faith and Blue weekend, We hosted a food drive at Stop and Shop with all the donations going towards the Danvers People-to-People Food Pantry. This was a huge success. Time-wise, they were definitely struggling, so they're very thankful. And they enjoy our food drives because everything we bring is right from the store. It's not, I clean up my cabinet, this might expire in 6 months. Everything that we bring in is freshly bought that weekend, so they know that it's good for a decent amount of time. Also in October, we had our second annual pumpkin painting with the police. So we had a project in the back parking lot where families could come down and paint pumpkins with the police department. We had Texas Roadhouse came down and helped sponsor the event, and a huge success. With the holidays coming, November 23rd, we did a second food drive at Market Basket. And again, we were able to pretty much fill the shelves of the food pantry, again, right before Thanksgiving weekend. December 7th, we had our annual toy drive at Target. This is about a 5-hour activity where we go to Target and we look for donations of toys for children in the community. We take a little different approach than Toys for Tots. Everything that we collect goes directly to Danvers families, which is very important to us. This is a program we're very proud to be part of. This is, I think, our 3rd or 4th year doing this. What we do is we work with the Danvers Public Schools social workers to identify families. This year, we identified 12 families that were in need of some help. Of these 12 families, we'll provide toys, clothing, hygiene products, and gift cards for 26 children in Danvers. Through our partnership with DCF, we also identified 3 foster families in Danvers, and we were able to provide them with toys for those children. And we also made a donation to the DCF shopping night. They have a shopping night where they allow foster families come to the main office in Salem and actually pick out some items. So we were able to make a donation to them as well. As you can see in that picture on the right, that's half the room of the donations we got in a matter of 5 hours at Target. With the remaining toys, we partnered with the Senior Center, and we set up a table and provide a shopping experience for Danvers seniors. During the event, the Senior Center estimated that 80 seniors participated in the event, so we actually replenished the table, I think, 2 or 3 times with toys that they could purchase, they could just take for their children or grandchildren. And again, you know, kind of something that we like to do and definitely benefits the families of Danvers. That's all I have. I have a couple of proposed dates for future updates, if these work for the board. March 18th, June 17th, September 16th. March 18th would give us a chance to kind of discuss what's going on prior to the summer. June 17th might be a good date to kind of check in how the summer's going. In September, we can do a wrap-up of the summer. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Chief. Questions, Dee?
Oh, thank you, Chief, for the update. That's a lot. I love the community part of it. I think community policing is so important. So my question, is this information readily available to residents?
We can make it. Traditionally, we use this during our Citizens Academy. We present this information. We can definitely, you know, put some stuff together for social media to update the community on some items.
Yeah, I think it would be useful for people to know what's happening and what our police department is involved with.
We used to release an annual report. Unfortunately, we had a turnover in our crime analyst. We had almost a year we didn't have one. And then when we had a new analyst come on, it was halfway through the year. It was kind of tough for him to do it. So we hope to actually for next year have a full annual report that we'll publish on our website.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you.
Maureen?
Mike Sims.
Thanks, Chief. My question is, you said that there's police presence on early release days and on warmer days. So is there somebody that's really walking the square? Are they patrolling continuously?
Yes, so there's, the square actually intersects with 3 different areas, area 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
So throughout the shifts, you do have those 3 area cars have different portions of the square, so they're throughout the square. We just definitely try to pay special attention to the warmer days and the early release days. It's not uncommon to see a cruiser on High Street, down by the Jimmy's area, because of McDonald's. We do our best to have someone down around CVS area, but it all depends on call service, calls of service volume. Unfortunately, like I said before, 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon is a busy time for us with other accidents, other incidents in town, so we do our best to keep cars down as much as we can. But as I mentioned, we try to pay special attention to the warmer days, especially as the spring comes. With the first few warm days, we'll have a lot of kids downtown, so we'll make sure we have increased presence, and then also on the early release days.
Okay, great. And what about weekends and nights, too?
Weekends and nights, the cruisers are out there and are out and around the area. You know, they're encouraged to spend time downtown. You know, we do walk and talks depending on the weather and what's going on. They're encouraged to get out of the car as often as they can to get involved with the community. We actually use, the Danvers High School publishes a sports schedule, use that as well to the supervisors, say, hey, you know, watch the sports schedule. If there's a game at the high school, send the come officers down to the sports games. Same with the square, the mall, if we can. So we do try to get as much as we can.
Okay, and I know it's weather permitting, but the rail trail, too. You know, we want to
Right.
try to see if we can get people, you know, to watch that, because there's been some problems on the rail trail. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Thank you, Dan. All I wanted to say is that I'm sitting here, and for 70 years, 70, I have known each of the Danvers police chiefs professionally, but with a good personal connection. And I think that Chief Lovell is doing a superb job, and it is one of the most difficult jobs in local government. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Michael?
Thank you. Hi, Chief. Thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing your guest with us for us tonight. Thank you. I appreciate that. Couple of questions for you. You have 3 people out on long-term disability?
So sickness, not disability, sickness.
Okay. And how many shifts a week is that creating for overtime?
The 3, probably 12 to 15 shifts a week.
Should we have people going back-to-back on these shifts when this is going on?
At times, yes.
Yeah. And the promotions, you're going to be doing those maybe in a couple weeks?
Hope so. The list should come out. I think the appeal process ended, yesterday or Friday. Once civil service releases that list, we can begin processing it.
Is it 3 sergeants you're going to be making?
At least. 1 lieutenant, at least 3 sergeants, if not more.
And then that'll create more overtime, right?
The winter months is usually the best staffing-wise because, you know, weather-wise, people aren't taking time off. With the 3 recruits coming out of the academy on February 28th, they should be out of the off-field training by early May, which gets into a busy time for time off. So we're hoping that it's going to balance itself out.
Okay. Do you know the amount of traffic stops your most active officer has?
Right now, a lot of the traffic stops there have to do with a lot of the grant that's going on right now. I don't have the exact numbers for each officer as far as numbers.
Okay. Any ideas? Somebody that tops the list, or you don't need a name. I'm just looking for a number.
I don't have that information.
Okay. What about arrests? Is there somebody that's getting a person pulling the most arrests?
Evening shift, there's quite a few officers in the evening shift.
Yeah. All right. The foot patrols in the square. You said that some of the area cars right now they're stopping in the center of town and they're doing some patrol down there
Correct.
per shift.
Yes.
Okay. Is that nightly, daily?
It should be daily, yes.
Okay. Can you commit that it will be daily?
Based on call volume, we do our best to get officers downtown.
Yeah, I understand. Do we have a traffic car?
We do not.
Would you be interested in getting one back?
At some point, yes, that would be beneficial, having someone that could dedicate, 40 hours, 35, 40 hours a week to traffic enforcement solely, yes, would be very helpful.
Okay. Is that, I believe Salem has some kind of a team of officers, like a crisis team or intervention team. You probably know about it more than I do. Is it
They have a community
anything?
impact unit.
Yeah. Is there anything that could be happening with Danvers with that? That
So-
might offset patrol answering calls to certain situations?
That has been a goal of mine since I got promoted. Unfortunately, we've been so short-staffed for the past 5 years that we have been kind of chasing our tail to get a full complement. It is a discussion that town manager and I are having currently and will be talked about during the budget process.
I know I've said it a bunch of times, and I don't know that if you're allowed to say it, but I think you need at least 4 more people. So I don't know if you can say that, or in the future, if you can say that, but I think
That will be
that's a
discussed during the
minimum.
budget process. That will be addressed.
All right. Let's see. The suspects in the Chris case, the Ducky case, so all of them have been charged now? They all have formal charges against
Yes.
them? Okay. All right. I think the rest of my questions. You gave us a lot of information tonight. I appreciate that. Oh, two other questions. Do you think we're going to be getting a K-9 back?
That's a tough question. Right now, the trend is towards comfort dogs versus patrol dogs. Most departments who have added patrol dogs have moved away from the shepherds, and they're going to labs because of liability and post, pretty much. So if we were to get one, it would probably either be a comfort dog or a lab-type dog. There's a lot to having the dog. There's staffing issues. You're required to, they only work a 7-hour shift versus 8-hour shift, so you're backfilling the hour every shift. A cruiser assigned to them, probably not quite doubles the price, but the expense, it's very expensive to outfit a cruiser for that. So it's just not an easy thing to do. The training is really a lot of money as well. And if they're assigned to like a NEMLEC type organization, call-outs get very expensive.
And Sheriff's Department and State Police supply that as needed anyhow, right?
We have Sheriff's Department next door in Middleton. We have State Police, and we also have NEMLEC. So if we call NEMLEC with the phone call, we can probably have 3 to 10 dogs here within half hour if needed.
Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, you have 2 detectives?
Yes.
All right. Is any idea if we're going to be getting some more?
During the promotional process, we hope to promote a supervisor to run CID. Then we have to backfill the 3 detectives' positions. Again, it depends on staffing. If we can facilitate staffing levels correctly, we'd like to have more detectives. It's a very important role. They do a lot of behind-the-scenes work. It's a tough position, and we'd like to have more. But again, just with the staffing numbers we've had so far, we have the 2.
The concern I'm having is staffing, and that we're going to have, possibly 400 more citizens next year at this time living in the center of town. That's what's being built now. So with those, if you just had 5 people out of that are problematic, that's going to add to the workload. So you're gonna need more people, and it just has to get done. That's just my opinion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question.
Can I speak?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Chief, you alluded to the fact that we used to get a regular update on the statistics,
Yes.
and I remember that.
Yes.
And then it's gone away because you didn't have the proper staffing. So with the numbers you gave us tonight, I don't know if I should be alarmed or should say, well, it's the same as what's going on in other similar-sized communities. Which is the right answer?
I think it's similar to other communities. If you look at a lot of our crime, like issues at the mall, like I said, we have Target, Best Buy, Nordstrom Rack, Kohl's. We do have a lot of shoplifting at those type of incidents. Looking at the motor vehicles, stolen motor vehicles, there was 35 listed. A lot of those are car rentals that aren't returned, that are reported stolen. So they're into stolen vehicles. Early in the year, also, there was a phenomenon called the Kia Challenge, where teens were stealing Kias. They found like an override how to steal Kias, and they were stealing them from different communities, and they'd steal one from Salem, drop it in Danvers, steal one from Danvers, drop it in Lynn, and they were just dropping cars around, so that added to that. So I think we're probably close to other communities.
When you come back with statistics in the future, can you have some comparisons
Sure.
available? I think that would be helpful, so
Year for year, or
whatever it is that you can provide on a regular basis going forwards, I think we'd like to see these statistics.
Okay.
It's been a number of years since we've seen them, so
sure.
it's helpful. And I've had people in the community ask me why we don't get that information, so be helpful. Dee, you had a question?
No, I was just following up. I didn't know if select board member being said traffic car. I wasn't sure what that meant.
The chief can explain it?
So what that would be, right now we run 5 area cars on the day shift and the evening shift. If we had a traffic car, it would be an additional car that would just be dedicated to traffic enforcement. So their entire shift would be traffic-related calls, whether it's running radar, parking complaints, crosswalk violations. So it's just dedicated to performing traffic functions. Sometimes there'll also be a priority car for major accidents. So if it's a more than a fender bender, that traffic car might actually handle the accident investigation. But it's just a dedicated car that works on traffic issues.
Thank you.
Okay, all set. In the audience, Bill?
Ian Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Obviously, we need additional officers. I would certainly like to see the town make every effort they could to get our additional officers. It might be difficult, but it has to be done. And along with the traffic car, I'd prefer to see a traffic division and them handling traffic problems to assigning a car when they can, a separate division to handle that. Makes sense to me. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Mark?
Chief, how are you? There's two questions that I have. One is,
To the chair, please, Mark.
yes, sir. The question is, the dispatch was previously sized for 3 or 4 dispatchers, and currently we have 1. Is that correct?
Jamie?
We have 2 dispatchers in every shift. So we have 2 dispatchers, one handles police, one handles fire department. So it's 2 dispatchers per shift.
So, but we occupy 1 seat at the station. Is that right? Or are we occupying others? What I'm looking at is we had promises of additional towns participating in the dispatching of our facilities that we have built. And I have not seen any improvement except for Danvers as being the only one that's occupying that facility. So that's just a comment, but I know that it's on everybody's mind, but nobody's thinking about it. But the last question I have is public access to your training room, because that is a facility that's available for public meetings that can be used, and it's isolated from the rest of the station. And I don't know why we do not use that more often, because that is, I don't know, 60 or 70 people can participate in that room. But it's something that we have available and we don't use it. Are we forbidden of using it?
No, that's not true.
Well, that's,
It is used, I've been in there numerous times for different meetings with different groups. I don't know what the rules are to get in there, but it's used. Is it overused? I don't know. Is it underused? I don't know.
could we get a clarification of how to access that room and who do we go to?
It's a
Thank you.
good question. Chief, who do they access?
So right now, the room will handle 46 to 48 people comfortably. That's what it's set up for. If you email Lynn Dulong, she can be found on Danvers website. She's my executive assistant, and we can kind of coordinate. We do have an issue now with parking. So traditionally, the lot behind the police station, we used as our own parking lot. The mall is very good to us over the years. We could host 30, 40 cars there, no problem. Massport has taken that parking lot over, and we're no longer able to use that lot as parking. So if we do have larger meetings, parking can become an issue.
There's parking on the street, is there not?
There is parking, it's just not as convenient as it once was.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else in the audience? Yes, sir?
I'm Bill McKenzie, 34 Harbor Street. Just recently, I'm a contractor in town. I've been a contractor for over 40 years. Recently, I had a client of mine call me. They're in trouble. They had a gentleman say that they needed a new chimney repointed. The gentleman got up on the roof. He said $450. Got up on the roof, tore the chimney down below the roof line, and then went down and said, I need more money. By the time they got the new chimney back up through the attic, a building inspector came by and looked for the permit. There was no permit. They had already paid him $80,000 for a chimney, small little chimney.
80,000?
80,000. The additional cost of that chimney for them to complete was another $70,000. Meanwhile, the gentleman that was contacted by building inspector said, I'll be in Monday morning to pull that permit. He's ghosted. He's gone. Meanwhile, they call me. They're all upset. They're good friends of mine. They're elderly. If I'm elderly, they're elderly. They didn't know what to do. So I sat them down. We looked through the whole project. The best thing to do is do away with the chimney, put a power vent boiler in, $30,000, done, 100%. Meanwhile, they're out at $80,000, and they called Danvers Police, and they said, there's nothing we can do. I don't know if there is or not, but, you know, that's a lot of money for people in Danvers to be taken from.
A lot of money for anybody to be taken from.
Absolutely.
The chief alluded to the number of fraud calls they have.
Yeah, and they're in the process of, you know, talking with a person, a lawyer. And they gave the guy initial cost of what, $10,000 cash, and then they gave him a check for $70,000. He's cashed the check. The guy's from Plymouth, Mass. And since then, he's taken his website down. Everything's gone. No communication, nothing. There's enough brick left on that front lawn to do the chimney again, even though it's almost all done. So the guy definitely didn't know what he was doing. The total house is a dust bowl. There's silica dust everywhere, horsehair plaster dust everywhere, and these people are living amongst it. I don't know what could be done. We're still in the process of it. I had to get their heating system up and running because the guy left a metal liner hanging out of the roof, blowing around in the wind. And, you know, carbon monoxide is really dangerous. So we jumped right on it, took care of him, but still he's in the hole. So I'm helping him out. I hope we can get him some help. Thank you.
Sorry to hear that story. Anyone else?
If you want to give me, send me an email with their name, and we'll make sure we reach out to them.
Anyone else? Anything you want to close with, Chief?
I'm happy to introduce
Please do.
District Attorney Paul Tucker to speak about juvenile police reform.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to the board members and members of the public. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, introduce yourself so the folks at home will know who you are.
Okay, my name is Paul Tucker. I am the District Attorney for Essex County. And at the invitation of Chief Lovell to come and speak about the criminal justice reform of 2018 as it pertains to the juvenile law. What I thought I would do, Mr. Chairman, if that's what you're looking for, I can give you an overview. I've got some examples of things, some of the difficulties that we've had. And in terms of the actual Danvers case, I think Chief Lovell did a pretty good job of covering that, and I'd be happy to take some questions. So.
Yeah, I think the board and the community wants to get a better understanding on that law or the reform, and why are the police hands tied if they are, or they're not.
Sure. So a couple of things. This happened in 2018. I actually happened to be a member of the legislature at the time. I was a state rep for 8 years and did some work on this. And with any big bill, and this was an omnibus bill, with any big bill, I think we can always find some things I disagreed with, but overall thought it was a good enough bill to support it. We have run into some issues with it as it pertains to my office and the prosecutions. So basically some of the highlights of this. One is it raised the age of what we call delinquency. And when I say delinquency, that's really a criminal charge. It's the same thing it would be in adult court, would be a criminal offense. We changed the language when it comes to juvenile court versus adult court. Some of the descriptors are changed a little bit. So somebody that's been found delinquent would be the same thing as being found guilty in an adult court. So the first thing, and probably one of the more important pieces, was it raised the age of delinquency, which was 7 years old, raised it to 12. So what that means, in effect, is that a person under the age of 12 cannot be charged with a criminal offense. So that's one of the first big things that was done. So a definition of a delinquent child is somebody between the ages of 12 and 18 that commits an offense. Now, I should also add that when it comes to town bylaws, city ordinances, or civil offenses like a civil traffic ticket, those also cannot be charged. So you would not be able to charge somebody with delinquency that violates a town bylaw in Danvers. It also has been problematic for us, and I'm gonna try to give the best example of this that I can. Somebody that falls within this age group, 12 to 18, on a first offense, for an offense that carries with it a jail term of less than 6 months or a fine, on a first offense, that charge cannot go forward. This was the legislature's way of basically giving somebody a second bite of the apple. And it's caused some issues in terms of figuring out what's a first offense. So what the legislature did, working with the court system, and I'll just use Danvers PD as an example, if Danvers brought somebody in that fell within this age range and they brought a complaint forward to charge them, what would happen is the clerk of the court, in this case it would be in Salem, would take a look at it, and they would run this person's name through our computer system, which is called mass courts. If the charge was something that carried a penalty of 6 months or less, or a fine, and there was no record of that person in the system, that charge would be dismissed. It's basically somebody's first bite at the apple. The other thing that we've had some issues with, and I'll just give you a brief tutorial on, is something called diversion. There's a few different diversion programs out there. Diversion basically means we're trying to keep somebody out of the system. We're trying to give them the help that they need, and if they follow the rules, the case will be dismissed. It used to be for juveniles only. The legislature, as part of this reform as well, has actually taken that age away. Somebody could have committed an offense at 55 years old, and as long as they fell within the parameters of what the charge was, they would also get that first bite of the apple as well. So when it comes to diversion, the Essex County DA's office, actually, in my estimation, we have a tremendous juvenile diversion program. It talks about mental health counseling. It talks about restorative justice, repairing the harm sometimes that particularly juveniles can cause, getting them together with somebody who they've caused harm to. Now, let me just throw an addendum there. That's not for every case. There's certainly cases that we're going to bring forward in court, and that this person would not have the opportunity for restorative justice. In a minute, I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like. Here's one of the problems we've run into, again, because of criminal justice reform. The state, in terms of the legislature, gave judges the power to craft their own diversion program, which basically is not a program. And I will tell you this, and it's something that has been a frustration in my office, particularly among our juvenile justice advocates. When we take somebody into our diversion program, it's a real program, it's robust. In the juvenile diversion program, the legislature took away the need for any programming, be it mental health counseling, some type of community service, even something like writing an apology to the victim of a crime. So in terms of judicial diversion, the DA's office used to have the opportunity to object and we could stop it. That's now also been taken away. We do not have the ability anymore to disagree with the judge. Now, that's not a critique of judges, because oftentimes we try to work with what's best for this young person. What we're really looking for is what's the best outcome, and that's part of the job of the court. Now, that's also balanced with a big part of my job, which is to balance public safety. And sometimes those lines are not so clear-cut. When it comes to the list of offenses in terms of diversion, there's also a number of offenses, and it's a long list of offenses that are not eligible for diversion. As you can imagine, some type of sexual assault, a violent crime, operating under the influence of alcohol, those are not eligible for diversion. We also have a tool of something called a youthful offender, and I'm going to get into that in a couple of minutes. Other cases that are not eligible for diversion is a charge that carries a mandatory sentence where the judge has no discretion. Whether if a person is found either delinquent or guilty, they have to make sure they serve the whole sentence. If diversion is done successfully, and that's the goal in these cases, the charge is dropped and the record is expunged. There's two types of diversion. One is pre-arraignment, one is post-arraignment. Best case scenario, it's pre-arraignment, the person gets no record. Here's what we know in terms of statistics. When we can keep a juvenile out of the court system, out of the incarceration system, their chances for success exponentially are much, much higher. We also know that the inverse is true as well, that if somebody enters the system at 14, 15, 16, chances are the recidivism rates for that person are also going to be much higher than if we had kept them out. Again, a big part of my job is to balance public safety, and we've got to make sure we also hold people accountable as well. Just a piece on the restorative justice. It's something that's important to me because I think under the right circumstances it works well. Let me just give you an example, a real example. It happened in Middlesex County. So two kids break into a store, small store, with the intent to cause some malicious damage. They do that, they spray paint some stuff, they break a few things. The next morning, the police department goes, they find out the two kids that did it. They let the shop owner know that these two young people have been charged, and the shop owner says, I don't want them charged, I don't want them to have a record, but I also don't want them to think they got away with it. So they did one of these restorative justice meetings, and the shop owner got to sit across from these two young people and talk about the harm that they had caused to him, his business, how he had to close for the day, how he had to send his sole employee home without pay because that person didn't work. And the two juveniles got to express remorse, realizing the stupidity of what they had done. That was a successful restorative justice case. And in those cases, as far as I'm concerned, you can look at that as success, and some people would say, well, they literally got away with something. What we're looking for is the best outcomes. What's the best outcomes for young people? Restorative justice has to be voluntary, and it has to be successful. If it's not, we can still bring those charges forward. Big change has been the ability of police officers to make arrests in schools. There used to be a number of charges that we could bring: disturbing an assembly in a school, disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace. The police no longer have the right to make those arrests. And if you take that exact same behavior and you move it from the school, off the school grounds, into the street, it's criminalized. This has been something that's been debated. And as I mentioned before, and having been a state rep for 8 years, I will tell you that the making of legislation oftentimes takes compromise. I know the board is certainly familiar with that as well. And this is one of those pieces of the comprehensive bill that was part of that compromise. When certain people get together from really two really different sides of the spectrum, and you've got to get somewhere in the middle, this is one of those ones that came up. Interestingly enough, in the discussions, I happened to be on the Education Committee at the time, was how we empower our SROs. And if I could just take a minute in terms of the Anderson case, the SROs in that case and a couple other cases recently at Essex Tech as well have done extraordinary work in Danvers. They do strong work, they know the kids, and I just want to add one more piece on the Anderson case. I know there was a lot of public information out there, some true, some not. One of the things that I heard in my office that reached my level was, why did it take so long? And I will tell you, what appears to be on the surface, oftentimes people think it's a very simple case. We just connect the dots from A to B, are not so simple. The amount of work that was done by Danvers PD and my office and another piece of my office, which is our video person, trying to put videos together. And Danvers did an extraordinary job getting Ring cameras, business cameras, to go step by step by step to be able to show that we can prove the case. And oftentimes, I think people expect us that we should be expedient rather than careful. I never want to do that. I'd rather take the extra time and make sure we do it right. So I want to make sure that I let you know that I was very pleased with the work that Danvers PD. When I mentioned at the top of my remarks that first offense, we're not seeing that in terms of prosecutions, it's problematic. And I'll tell you what we're seeing is oftentimes by the time a case rises to my level where we have to prosecute, it's a serious case. It might be a gun case. And that person may have been getting in trouble at a couple of different points. And I think what's unfortunate is that in my office, and I'm sure my colleagues across the Commonwealth, those are missed opportunities for us to try to help those juveniles. It's not all about prosecution. It's not always about punishment. Sometimes it is, don't get me wrong. But oftentimes, we can try to get to the heart of the matter. Is there a domestic violence situation? Is there a sexual assault component? Is there anger management? These are things that we can address if we know about them. Part of that has been taken away from us. We've seen this a lot, particularly in Lawrence and in Lynn, where there's gang activity. Some of these young people that are coming up in our radar have been known to the police. They've committed some offenses, but because of some of these changes, it's made it difficult for us. And by the time they do come up on our radar, oftentimes it's too late. The other piece of it, and I will say, I know there's been a lot of talk in Danvers about the square and kids after school. You're not alone. I just attended a meeting 3 weeks ago in Salem where we met with the superintendent of schools and a number of stakeholders. The amount of disorderly behavior after school in Salem right now is staggering. And it's been leading to some really serious crimes as well. I mentioned earlier youthful offender. This is the tool that I have, which came about probably about 25 years ago after a couple of really horrendous crimes. Under the youthful offender, my office has the ability to try somebody between the ages of 14 and 18 as an adult. This is for a felony. It's got to be a serious felony, something that caused serious bodily harm or death, a firearms offense. This changes the venue, it changes the realm from juvenile court to Superior Court, which does a few things. And 4 of the young people involved in the Danvers case, 4 out of the 6, we've charged as youthful offenders. What does that mean from a practical standpoint? We can release their information to the public. You saw the names of 4 of these individuals in the paper. 2 were under the age of 14, so they're still going to fall within the jurisdiction of the juvenile court. But the 4 that we did indict that the chief mentioned, we indicted them as youthful offenders. That moves the case to Superior Court. The media can cover the case, and they will receive, according to the judge's decisions, potentially the same punishment as an adult. The issue of juvenile diversion, as I mentioned before, it's been frustrating to prosecutors. We're really trying to work with the judges. We're trying to get mandatory programming for these people, for these young people. We think we've been having some pretty good success. The other piece, and I'll just close the loop, is when behavior such as you've seen in Danvers Square rises to what might be an annoyance, it might be disturbing folks, it might be seen as being disorderly. One of the things that we have as a tool is something called a child receiving assistance. Used to be called a CHINS, Child in Need of Services. This is what we call a status offense. It's something that we can bring to the court's attention because of the status of the young men and women, because of their age. It's things that we would not be able to bring as an adult. Examples, a runaway, habitual truant missing from school, disobeying parents. We can bring that child in as a child to receive assistance through the court. And we've had some success with it. There's been some limitations on transportation of how we get these juveniles. They can't be handcuffed, they can't be held in a lockup, but it does give us at least some room to be able to do something. And then the last piece, and I know, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned about the data for Danvers PD. There's a very robust data component to all of this. We want to see if there's any metrics, if what we're doing is working. I can tell you anecdotally now, in the 5-year period, just ended in December, the 5-year period from criminal justice reform, we're looking at some longitudinal studies. What we do know is arrests are down, and if you look statistically at the uniform crime reports, crime is down. There might be some anecdotal stories that we see some really terrible crimes that are still happening. We've had some tough ones in Lynn and Lawrence, some gang-related incidents involving people within this age group. And sometimes we take a look at those anecdotes and people sometimes misconstrue that there's heavy violence. That's not always the case. So I think these are something we really need. What's the measuring stick? Can we find out if these changes in criminal justice reform are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing? So I also want to thank the board for your interest in this. We've worked really closely on Chris's case. Chris and his mom came to my office about a month ago. I was able to sit down, talk with them, hear their concerns, and I think actually give them some comfort as well, just to let them know firsthand the work that Danvers PD did and the work that my office is doing now. So I thank you for your interest in this.
I'll ask the board if they have any questions. Mike?
Yes, thank you very much for coming in, very much appreciate it. Can I clear one thing real quick? Mr. McKenzie brought up a case. Can that couple just go file their own charges?
So I'd be interested, after they meet with the chief, to take a look at that. We have been, I'll say, inundated with an epidemic of scams, this one being one of the more common ones. We estimate in Essex County reported scams, $11 million last year. That figure is probably about 50% low. It's amazing. I've done public service announcements. We've sent out, we've spoken at the elderly housing. We just did some things over in Peabody at the senior center. We did one in Salem. We have a woman who was the victim of a scam who gets out and tells her story, and it's frightening. This is a woman with a law degree, 30-year career working for the state, and as she's giving $13,000 into a Bitcoin machine in a gas station in Salem, she's saying to herself, I know this is a scam, I know it is. But the guy was on the phone with her and convinced her to do it and then buy the gift cards. The foundation scams, the chimney scams, we've seen quite a bit of it. We've had some success prosecuting them. So what I'd like to do after Mr. McKenzie passes that on to the chief, we've got 2 people in our office that are doing incredibly good work on this, and we'd be happy to pursue it with Danvers.
So statistically, would you say that this juvenile law that's been placed and came into brought life to in 2018, are we winning? Are we losing? Are we staying the same? It seems, just practically looking at it, doesn't seem like it's a great thing.
So there's been a lot of difficulties. I will tell you that. There's been difficulties from my office. There's been difficulties from the police. What we're hearing from the police oftentimes is they don't want to make an arrest because there's a feeling that nothing's going to happen. That's a real thing. I will also say that depending on what your yardstick is to measure, we've also had a lot of success stories as well. Kids that would have otherwise gone into the system, we've been able to successfully divert them. You know, we had a couple of cases in the last 2 months. One was a young man who pulled a number of fire alarms in the mall in Salem. And we put him in diversion. He was an appropriate candidate. He spent 2 weekends at the firehouse with firefighters. He had to go to the businesses that he pulled the alarms at and apologize. He washed some fire trucks, spent some time there. We don't expect to see him again. Prior to this, that person probably would have been charged. And I just want to be clear that, you know, the better outcomes for offenders, particularly juveniles, if we can work with them, better outcomes long term. Things that housing, join the military, college scholarships, these are things that a criminal record sometimes can derail. So we also are mindful about that. But as I said earlier, my job is also public safety. And I want to make sure that we have to hold people accountable as well.
I think by the time you get to see them, it's a failure at home. I think we get a parenting problem, and that's a huge issue, as well as technology at such a young age for the kids. The return offenders, what kind of number, any thoughts on that? 50%, 70%?
So depending on the type of crime, and we also work with Sheriff Coppinger as well. He tracks his recidivism rates as well. He's had some success. Some of the higher recidivism rates are people that have substance use issues, people that have mental health issues. Oftentimes we see people with dual diagnosis, and it's a struggle. And I will tell you, one of the biggest frustrations that I've had. I've been DA now 2 years. I'm halfway through my term. One of the biggest struggles we have is getting treatment for people, trying to find treatment for people who are addicted to substances. The biggest issue we've had has been trying to access mental health. And we've reached out, we've made some good connections up in Merrimack Valley with Merrimack Valley Family Services. Part of our diversion program is a mental health component. Whether you think you need it or not, we make sure that they have to take it. We're holding on to people, trying to move them out of diversion, and we're having trouble accessing the mental health piece. So we've been struggling. It has been difficult.
Is there a lack of mental health facilities?
Very much, very much. It's a lack of beds. In my last year as state rep, I helped a couple of families whose children, juveniles, were being boarded in emergency rooms. We had a family from Salem, had a 13-year-old, spent 12 days at Beverly Hospital in the emergency room, just sitting in there waiting for a bed. And I actually called, at the time, Secretary Sutters, who was a cabinet secretary, on the 4th of July, and said, this is wrong. She ended up getting me a bed. It shouldn't have to come to that. But I think we're in dire straits when it comes to that. I really do.
Would you agree with the statement that maybe there is the numbers of crime and/or arrests being lower is due to the fact that police officers today have to deal with the fact that a certain amount of the public would rather film the incident than to help, and also people are sue happy, so why would an officer want to get involved? Considering, 30, 35 years ago when it was just all hands on deck, would you agree that people are just more, officers are just more, less likely to get involved because of that? And also this, and I hate to say it, the post commission seems like it's a lopsided situation. I'm all for correct behavior, in law enforcement or in any kind of enforcing agency. It just seems that we're biting our own tail here.
So, personal opinion, I had 32 years in the police department in Salem, and my son's on the job now 15 years. Halfway through his career, he's detective sergeant. He works really hard. I worry about the officers that are on the job who are feeling that way. I think if you take a look at the numbers, and again, my personal opinion, you take a look at the numbers of men and women that are entering police work, the numbers are way, way down. If you take a look at when I took the civil service exam, I got on the job in 1983. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Salem residents on my list, and fortunately I was able to get on the job. Those numbers of hundreds now, I think, are probably down to dozens. It's really, really difficult. Something has to change. I tell the officers that that pendulum has to swing back. It's got to come back. And fortunately, there's still a lot of good people that will look for the job. This is an environment now like no other time that I've seen. In terms of the post-commission, one of the things that Massachusetts was 50th, by the way, when it came to licensing police officers. And if I could boil it down to this, and I don't want to get too far off track, Mr. Chairman, we license barbers, hairdressers, plumbers, contractors. I think there was a need to license police officers. 'Cause one of the things we saw, we had testimony from Springfield where an officer was fired 5 different times, kept popping up in different departments. Having said that, if you're going to have a post-commission and we're going to do this, you've got to do it right. It has to be fair and it has to be due process.
Exactly. Let's see, I had one more question, I think. You answered a lot of questions. I appreciate you coming tonight. As a community, looking to possibly change the laws, it seems like there's a lot of meat to it, and maybe it's just a lack of information on the public's part. Is it, as a community, is there even any chance of, a group getting together to, get our legislature to change the laws to, or is it just, again, it's turning with the times? I'm asking a general question. I don't mean to go off track either.
Yeah. I think it depends which direction we want to go, and my former colleague, Rep. Kearns, is here, who I really enjoyed serving with, and we worked really well together. it would be a difficult proposition to try to change some of this right now. I'll tell you why. When an omnibus bill is put forward, there's not a lot of appetite to go back and change it unless there's something glaring. I think, and I don't disagree with that. I think sometimes you have to give things a chance to work. And when I mentioned earlier, so we're really a little past 4 years into this by the time it was actually implemented and given a chance to work. I would suggest that we tweak things. Maybe there's some opportunities I've heard from police officers, prosecutors, some things we can be doing differently, and we're happy to take a look at that as well. There's been some discussion around the jurisdiction of the juvenile court, some good things there, work with emerging adults. A lot of this is still a work in progress. So, yeah, but I don't disagree with at least the fact that you put a spotlight on it and say, let's take a look at it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to make a couple comments. I was an assistant district attorney 57 years ago, and throughout the last 57 years, I've paid a lot of attention to law enforcement and prosecution in the Commonwealth. I have known this district attorney and John Blodgett, its predecessor, and Kevin Michael Burke, the predecessor, and a lot of the young people who work for a pittance. Sometimes you have a young lawyer making $50,000 or $60,000 who is opposing a high-priced Boston mafia-type lawyer who makes $1 million a year. And so the leadership that comes from the district attorney is so important to the souls and the efforts of the young people, mostly young people, who take those jobs. I am very proud of Essex County and of this district attorney's work and the two predecessors, and I have worked with them closely. What has troubled me a lot is unfairness. When we had the hockey locker room situation in Danvers, which was dreadful. Two members of the school committee, Eric Crane and Arthur Scamius, who are both lawyers, took a brutal beating publicly and in the newspapers of having somehow screwed up as members of the school committee. I personally reviewed every single legal opinion and every law that was applicable to them. They made no mistakes. Their work as school committee members and lawyers was impeccable. No one knew that, no one cared about that, and no one paid any attention. That's really sad. When we had the situation of our youngster 3 or 4 months ago, the Danvers police took a brutal attack on why they would not name the parents, name the students, do this, and publicize because the people have a right to know. Well, we don't. The legislature has an enormous network of protective laws, very legitimate, hammered out over years of work, as District Attorney Tucker has said, which constrain what can be said and what can be done about these young hoodlums. And McDonald's is one of my favorite hangouts, and so I know what I'm talking about. I just want to say, for the abuse that you take, for the silence that you must maintain, and I'm looking at our wonderful Chief Jamie Lovell as well, I do understand, and I ask other people to understand, and I will keep watching and applauding you when you do the beautiful jobs that you do. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Maureen?
Mr. Tucker, thank you very much for coming, and, it's a tough job, what you and your staff do, and Rep. Kearns and everything. We understand that the laws need to be a little bit more harder, but we do want to try to save as many people as we can and put them in these programs. And I do think, as you say, mental health is really, if we can stop it here and find out what the issue was at the beginning to try to keep them from getting incarcerated would be good. But they also have to perform. What happened to Chris Anderson, though, was unacceptable. I'm very concerned with the additional housing that's coming in town. I do agree with Select Board Member Bean and other members of the board that we do need more police. You know, you do hear about the Lynn, and I work in Lynn. You know, I do see the gangs. I hear the stories in Lawrence and things like that. We don't want this to come to Danvers, you know. So with hopefully more police officers coming for Jamie and his crew, that would be good. And more awareness for the community, more police patrols that we talked about. I think when they see the police, let's hope that they get scared. I know when I used to see police, and when I still see police, I get scared, you know. But thank you for what you do. I know it's a tough job. Do you think sometimes, like when we were talking about the police officers not wanting or not feeling that they shouldn't make the arrest because of being sued, I don't know what your personal opinion is about the body cams. Does that help them or hurt them?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a interesting approach, I guess. So when the body cams first came into being, I was still on the job, and they really hadn't taken hold in Massachusetts. And initially, I was very resistant. I was wrong. The body cams, I think, are one of the best things that's happened. Frankly, it's a protection for the police. The amount of misconduct complaints against police officers has dropped dramatically, and it tells the story. I think that the ability to have the body cameras, and we use it for great evidence as well. And we've actually had to bring personnel on board for discovery purposes because we have to give it to defense attorneys, as we should. Sometimes the work is definitely, it's worth the effort. And I think they've been very, very good. I'm a proponent of the body cams. I think most police officers are as well. So.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That's it, Dan.
Thank you. Dee?
Thank you, DA Tucker, for the update. Great information. And also thank you for your candor into the fact that the law had some very good things, but there were definitely some things that we could work on. I had a lot of questions that I just scratched out because you answered them. School-based arrest, and maybe the chief or you, it says in the law that it requires that the assigned school resource officer enter into a memorandum of understanding, setting boundaries. I suppose we have that for our SROs.
Yes.
Now, if there's violence in the school, they can still make an arrest. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So the non-arrest within the school is only if it has to do with school discipline.
Discipline and disruption. I think it's one of the charges used to be disrupting a school assembly, and I think the feeling was that officers handled different things different ways, and what might be an annoyance to folks and to school administrators, sometimes the police felt that they had to take some action. Sometimes the administrators felt it was best left to them. So the legislature put this in place. We should be clear that if there is any type of violence, police are going to act immediately. It's really this very subjective decision if somebody is being annoying or is causing some type of disruption. And you know, there were a few cases where, and I remember one of them from when I was at the State House. It was in a larger urban district where an administrator told a student take a hat off, refused to take a hat off. The officer moved in, they scuffled, ended up arresting him. That's what we're trying to stay away from. That's really a school discipline issue, and that's really not why the police officers are there. I also will say, I think that the training, I can speak for Essex County and I'll speak for Danvers, the training that the school resource officers get has changed the whole approach to the job. I couldn't be happier with the job. And we had a case not that long ago, it was at Essex Tech, and Chief Lovell's school resource officers there were phenomenal. The work that they did, they got right on this. There's some, you know, when a serious case happens, what you want to happen on the police side, they did it exactly as they should. I was very pleased with the work that they've done.
So in that case, so the school and the SRO work together to make the call as to what that threshold is. And I suppose during the training, they get examples of what like the one you just gave?
Yeah, so there's a lot of training that goes with it, and I think a lot of it is building a working relationship as well between the officers and the administration, which I know you have here in town. I met 3 weeks ago with Superintendent Bauer on a number of issues, and he's just a great partner as well. And I think very fortunate to have that here in town.
And you may or may not have an answer for this, but one of the changes were to decriminalize anything that someone steals less than $1,200. Do we know, I mean, how did we come up with that? And we had a case at CVS, there was a gun involved, but if there was no weapon, they walked in and got a bottle of OxyContin that's only costing $450. They can just walk. Is that what the law says?
I mean, that's just not quite accurate. If I could
Okay.
just, I'll take the time. Thank you for raising it, though. So what the $1,200 figure is what changes a larceny from a misdemeanor to a felony. So under $1,200 is still chargeable. So but it just takes it into the I guess the lesser realm of a misdemeanor. And in a case where, and I'll just use shoplifting as an example, I know that some DAs across the country have decided that on their own they would internally decriminalize it, I guess is the best way to say it. I would not do that. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair to shop owners. I don't think it's fair to the public who have to pay for that. Now, having said that, if somebody that's 15 years old shoplifts something and it's a first offense, I think that's a case we can look at to see if they deserve that first bite. Shoplifting is not a victimless crime. We had a person from Salem that went to Home Depots up and down New England, stole almost $500,000 worth of high-end electronics and tools. That's not a victimless crime. And I know there was at least one DA, a former DA in Massachusetts, that had a policy of not charging shoplifting. I couldn't disagree with that more.
Okay. And the last question I have is for civil infractions. What do we have as a town left in our toolbox to enforce violation of local ordinance? What do we do?
So that's a difficult one. I think in that case, you'd have to default back to the child receiving assistance. If it's problematic, that disobeying piece, you'd have to work with the parents. You'd really have to get the parents on board as well. And you could bring that person in. You could put conditions on them. Maybe it's a curfew. Maybe it's a stay-away order. The other thing that Danvers could do is also issue a no trespass. Let's just say, for example, at the CVS, causing issues there, the Danvers PD would have the ability to issue that person a no trespass. And if they went in, then some charges could result from there. So there are a few things. It is a little more limiting, but there are a few things that you can do. Oftentimes, honestly, it's the parents to make sure that you've got them on board with you as well. So.
Thank you. Thank you for the update.
Thank you, Dick. Anyone in the audience, questions? Jim?
Howdy, Jim Rose, town meeting member, precinct 3, almost forgot. Okay, do we get credits for this course? I had a lot of questions, you answered a lot of them, but, I mean, again, the whole essence why you're here is because we had a couple of meetings and there was a lot of parents here that was just really, really concerned about what was going on. And they were talking about their kids being in fear in the schools. And so, and kind of like you mentioned, like in Salem and Lynn, there's a lot of violence going on in the schools, and is that going to start happening in Danvers? I mean, I know that even in your reports, you said that the crime rate's going down, but then to support the bill that as it is, that it has some good points, but yet, on the same token, we're talking about less violence, less crime being reported, less crime being arrested, or people being arrested, so that, that just kind of doesn't, make sense. But, and again, the post commission, that's just another thing that puts fear into the police. And I know that you mentioned something about the judge and the DA and how.
Jim, address the chair, please.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
The whole issue that, within the law, the judge has, total sway on what's going to happen, where in the past, before this law, the DA had options to make decisions about what's going to happen with the criminal. And so there's a lot of little bits and pieces of this law that we, kind of should be tweaked, as we talked about. And I'm just saying that I think that, there's been a lot of legislation, especially stuck in these omnibus bills. And just recently, legislation has been passed that they've had to create emergency orders to fix them. And so we got to do some, these omnibus bills, I know it's no excuse, I mean, it's all in there, but there's got to be a way to fix and tweak these problems. That's all I just wanted to
Good point.
highlight and point out. And again, because the parents are concerned about their kids, and I don't know, I know that you've talked to our, the DA's talked to our school people, and I've talked to Dan and the superintendent of the junior high as well, and then they said the same thing. It's just kind of tough with this law. Not specifically, but we got to do something just to protect the kids. I mean, we need a little more, if we have to increase school policies or whatever, but something's got to be done.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello, Lauren Steves, Hood Terrace. I just have a few questions, I guess, that I would like clarified. You first started by saying that if they bring a child in on charges and you look in your system and they haven't been charged, the system, the charge basically is wiped out. They don't have a record. So the second time around, what's in the system to tell you, oh, the first time was expunged? That's my first question. I don't know if you want to answer them one by one. You want me to ask all of them?
I'll do that. I'll take one at a time. Okay.
Please.
So, interestingly enough, you hit on the very first problem that this legislation showed, and we were scratching our heads saying, if the first offense is expunged, how do we know there was a first offense? So it's been fixed. So there's a criminal complaint that's filed. It goes to the clerk's office. The clerk makes a note. He checks something called mass courts, which is basically, it's the computer system. If there is no record in there of this person, they will make a note that the person's been charged and they've gotten their one bite of the apple. So if they came back in a second time, the notation is a red flag. It'll pop up, said, first offense, Danvers, January 25th of 2025, was in there. Now he gets arrested in February. The first one will show up, and as it shows up as a second, it actually looks like a first offense, but a notation was made. So that, they didn't have that when this bill was first filed. It's been fixed, so.
Thank you for answering that. I appreciate it. The second one, and I don't know how likely this would ever be, but moving the age from 7 up to 12. And I say this with the thoughts of the gangs that you deal with in Lynn and Lawrence. You're saying nobody under the age of 12 can be charged. Are we talking murder, attempted murder, serious assault and battery, et cetera?
So anyone under the age of 12, bright line rule, cannot be charged with any crime at all. The only action that we, as a DA's office, would be able to take is to file some type of a civil commitment, which is a parallel track to criminal, different standard of proof, different results. We're not just going to send that person home, but we would not be able to prosecute the case for any charge under the age of 12.
Do you see that as a problem?
Well, it would be a problem for us, and just, this is very hypothetical, and let's also say it would be extremely rare. It would be problematic for us, but I want to be clear, that person does not just automatically go home as if nothing ever happened. There are things that we can do on the civil side, ask for a civil commitment, and basically what happens is every 6 months there will be a review on that person's case, and if whatever it was that they committed, if there was if the actual words are that their release it can't be incompatible with public safety is the standard. So we would have to keep going back every 6 months and have the judge renew the order. I've never had to deal with that. It's rare. Again, that was put in place with an eye toward rehabilitation of a juvenile rather than punishment. So I hope that answers it.
And then I guess to wrap everything up, you kind of described that it's not just Danvers dealing with the after-school kids, and you're seeing staggering amounts in Lynn and Salem and everywhere else, which kind of seems counterintuitive to what you're saying, that these laws are helping these kids get a bite at the second apple, or a get-out-of-jail-free card, if you will. And it seems like it's maybe not necessarily working as well as it was intended to, if we're still seeing such a large number of kids causing disturbances. And then I guess to tie in specifically with Danvers, and I understand these bylaws that can't be enforced that we've been talking about, but the big specific issue that we've had, especially in the summertime when the weather is nice, is these kids in groups of 5, 6, 7, 8 in bicycles riding into the middle of the street. I mean, I've seen a motorcycle 3 feet from running a kid over because he just shot out into traffic. And we're kind of being told there's nothing we can do. There's no way that that's not disorderly conduct or some type of moving violation, that these kids someone's going to get killed. So I just would like an explanation as to why something can't be done about those specific situations, because it seems very, very dangerous. And that's all I had. Thank you.
So just to put the numbers in context, the meetings that I had in Salem with the superintendent and the various stakeholders, we were talking in Salem about 25 kids. We actually had all their names, about 25 kids, against the backdrop of thousands of Salem kids. So oftentimes what we see, actually even with adults as well, it's a small percentage of people who are committing an outsized percentage of the crime. For violent crime, somewhere around 20% of people commit about 80% of the crime. Those numbers are probably going to hold for juveniles as well. So what we've done, what they did in Lynn, was basically try to keep kids busy and give them something to do. Now, that's a bit of a simplistic answer, but I met with the Lynn mayor, and some of the things he did. Every kid in Lynn this past summer who wanted a job got a job. Every single kid. It's a big commitment. My office works with a group called Leap for Education. We just gave them a substantial grant to help kids get some jobs. It's about keeping kids busy. It's about having parents get involved. When we see the gang activity, it's generally kids who are going home to an empty house. And gang members are really good at grooming kids and identifying kids. And what they'll tell them is, they'll say that you're a juvenile, nothing can happen to you. Hold the drugs, hold the guns. And then that kid who may have been doing some minor crimes, things that we didn't pick up because of these changes in the laws, the first time we see him or her is when they've got the guns and the drugs. It is frustrating on the town bylaws and the bicycles. I get that. I think what Danvers is doing by increasing the presence, increasing the interaction between the police and the kids, I'm sure that whatever it is that reaching out to the parents, reaching out to school people, the mentorships, these are things that we just have to keep doing. You can't just throw your hands up and say, there's nothing we can do. So there are some things we really have to stay at. I know it's been frustrating.
D.A. Tucker, thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for your candor. We really appreciate it. And Chief Lovell, we'll see you in March.
Great.
And thank you for your information tonight.
Great, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Sharon Lubis, my chief of staff, who helped me put this together as well. Chief Lovell and Lieutenant Sullivan, my former student at Salem State, who I taught a lot. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And at this time, we'll take a brief 5-minute recess. and the Casper Plan. And with us tonight is,
Hi, I'm Tanya Jenkins.
Welcome.
Thank you. I am the Safety and Sustainability Coordinator for the Electric Division. So I'm working with the Casper Plan, which is the Climate Action, Sustainability, Preservation, and Resiliency Plan. The Danvers Select Board played a crucial role in initiating this climate action processing plan and starting back in 2022, and then they signed it formally in August of 2023. And there's 6 focus areas within the plan. That's the energy, buildings, natural resources, public health and safety, transportation and land use, and solid waste. And so tonight, we are going to have a presentation from the energy area by Jeff Eli, who is the Energy Resource Manager.
welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for having me back. My name is Jeffrey Ely. I am the Energy Resource Manager for the Electric Division. I am the energy champion for the plan. So, as Tanya alluded to, she's going to bring forward some of the champions for the 6 sections of the plan. Of course, I'm the first. I'm the guinea pig to give my update. We luckily work in the electric division, so we have a good amount of control about where the energy for the town comes from. And I'll just go into it very briefly. I'll look over some of the goals for the energy source section and how we're addressing some of those goals and tasks within the plan. Let's see if I can get this to work. Nope. See here. Yeah, technical difficulties. Rodney, will you hit it? I'm not getting it to work. Not connecting. You can hit yeah, there you go. Just go back. Next one. So the major goal for the energy portion is to drive the transition to 100% carbon-free energy use. We do that in 3 different ways: local renewable energy generation, grid and infrastructure resilience, and energy supply. Our energy supply focuses mostly on the Massachusetts Decarbonization Roadmap, which is the planning scenarios for Massachusetts to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And then that it emphasizes equitable and affordable transition away from fossil fuels through electrification, efficiency, and decarbonized energy supply, which is my main focus, is decarbonized energy supply. And I'll show you that in the next slide. These are the 2 goals here. Goal 1 is we have energy that is carbon-free and local, and then our goal 2 is strategically use and store energy to reduce emissions and costs. That's mostly through battery storage. Next slide, please. So strategy 1.1, secure long-term renewable energy contracts with new utility-scale renewable sources in the region. Just as a background, Danvers Electric secures long-term energy contracts with suppliers from all over the Northeast. The ISO New England, where we procure our energy from, is New York, all the New England states, and then now up into Quebec through Hydroelectric, Hydro-Quebec. But as you can see from the large from the pie chart, the largest section, it's about 60%, is from nuclear, and that's through contracts that we have, long-term contracts that we have in Seabrook and Millstone. Seabrook is just right over the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border. You've probably seen the Seabrook power plant. We procure very cheap electricity through Seabrook. That's classified as a non-carbon resource. So we're well on our way towards that 100% goal. But we also get power from hydro, a big portion from Hydro-Quebec. We get our big portion from First Light out in Western Mass, some hydro out in New York. And then, of course, we have smaller wind contracts. We have some smaller solar contracts, and I'm going to go into it a little bit further, but we have some local renewable energy generation through our solar contracts here in town. Next slide, please. I'll share this. We have a more detailed power supply map, but I'm not going to click into it and go all that, but next slide. So maximize local solar production within Danvers is strategy 1.2. We do that in several different ways, mostly through our in-town generation. And our most recent one, the Schools Go Solar project, it's three solar arrays on the rooftops of the Smith School, the Highlands Elementary School, and the high school. The sizes are there. The largest ones at the high school, littered amongst the the rooftops of the high school. This is a power purchase agreement, so it was no cost for Danvers Electric to build and maintain these. We actually had a company called Select do the installation, and they maintain the panels. And we pay them a fixed rate for all electricity generated on those schools. It's similar to like any other power supply contract for all the electricity generated. Those panels are, in essence, a generator for us. And then, so that's in-town generation that we pay them on a monthly basis for each one of those arrays. And then we also have existing solar already in Danvers. We have about 5.63 megawatts installed. That's 70 residential systems, PV systems. That's on rooftops. 6 direct connect PV systems, PPA PV systems. That includes the schools. And then 10 commercial behind the meter systems. Those are older systems that were put on. There's one at Danvers Indoor Sports. We have one at what else? Cherry Hill. There's a couple places at Cherry Hill that have them. The Prep has a ground-mounted. St. John's Prep has a ground-mounted system, and then we are also, as Mr. Zubrick alluded to, we have plans for landfill solar project right now. There's a filling operation. We've got some preliminary design. I think it's on the next slide. So we have a landfill solar project. We did a preliminary design, 2 megawatts of AC capacity at the landfill solar. For the landfill solar, we're currently filling it, and it's about 650 400-watt panels. It's a fairly lengthy process to get these landfill projects completed. It involves public hearings, it involves permitting, it involves Department of Environmental Protection permitting. That will all kick off in the spring. Even before the landfill operation is completed, we will be moving on that. So eventually there will be a RFP, request for proposals, for the entire system. So we're still working on that. Danvers Electric will be spearheading that initiative, and it'll involve the public hearings, it'll involve the select board, involve everybody. We're not trying to put one over on anybody. It's just the whole opening the landfill and filling it and getting that permit was contingent upon doing the solar. That's how the DEP typically likes to reopen landfills. It's not in their, they don't love to do that kind of thing. So we're as transparent as we can be. There's a lot of pre-work that has to be done in order to get these things built. And we're working with Bobrick Engineering. It's a Danvers engineering firm to go through that process. And it's a years-long process. So we're right in the middle of that. And then for future projects, we continue to support new residential solar. That's rooftop mostly through Danvers Electric PV rebate program. It's capped at $4,500 per system, and that's issued through our business office. And then we continually get proposals from businesses to put commercial solar on buildings all over Danvers, Cherry Hill, a Honda dealership, and we offer competitive PPA pricing for those installers and for those businesses that want to put it on. We kind of take them on a case-by-case basis. They're not super common in that aspect, but we work with those installers and with those business owners to make it happen. Next slide. And then the last one update is strategy 2.1, deploy energy storage at appropriate rate structures to minimize energy supply costs. This is mostly peak shaving. So you've probably seen initiatives to lower the peak during hot days. It's built off of that, but at a much larger scale. So you build a giant battery at a site that you have the space to put these giant batteries, and then you can discharge the batteries when you're hitting your peaks. And so right now we have just about to be finished completion a 5 megawatt battery at the old Ferncroft substation on Ferncroft Road. And Milton Cat is the owner operator of that battery. No cost to Danvers Electric or the town of Danvers, but when they run the battery during transmission and capacity peaks, there's a shared savings model for the town and the battery owner. And so that's how the arrangement usually works. It cuts down the liability on the electric division. It cuts down the liability on the town. And most of the risk is, pretty much all the risk is on the battery owner to hit those transmission peaks. And then we're hoping to have that online in spring to 2025. They're finishing up some fire protection on that site right now, so we can do our witness testing and test the battery and that sort of thing. I think that might be it for energy updates. I will now open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Jeff.
You got it.
Any questions?
Yes, thank you very much. 100% for carbon-free energy use, that's for sure. And just a quick question, and you may or may not know, how do we size up compared to other communities around the North Shore as far as our trajectory heading toward this 100% carbon-free?
We're ahead of most communities.
Okay.
And that's mainly due to the fact that we own and we have the Seabrook nuclear energy resource. Adjacent communities like Middleton and Middleton's probably the biggest. Like they're going to struggle to find these carbon-free contracts, and they're a challenge to procure. We work with Energy New England, which is like they kind of coordinate other municipal electric divisions within this region of Massachusetts, and so there's like 25 communities, and so we have group purchasing power. So that's how we leverage our smaller communities into getting these contracts. But we're poised to be, 85, 90% in the next 2 years, and so right now we have these long-term, we're unlike National Grid and Eversource, we're able to enter into these 10 to 15-year contracts with energy suppliers, and that puts us at a much better and more stable rates, and that's why we don't see rate changes as much compared to National Grid and Eversource communities. We keep our rates pretty low and are really stable. And so that's really the biggest advantage, I think, to being able to procure these contracts, whether they be wind contracts, whether they be natural gas contracts, which we still have to do. We don't take, and I think some people think that Danvers Electric takes every wind or solar or any renewable energy contract, whatever the price is, and that's not the case. We evaluate each contract as it comes, and if it doesn't work, fiscally for the utility and for what makes sense, and we won't take that contract. But we've been fortunate in our group buying ability to keep those costs down and rates stable. So I don't see us having to make any major changes, but that's the general layout of how we get things done.
Okay. And probably the question that a lot of people have and a lot of residents have, and I do have, you spoke of it a little bit, the rate. How do all these changes affect? So is it that if we go to 100% carbon-free, we get all nuclear or use some hydro, we just plateau on the rate, or we don't go up as much as other community, or is there a possibility for residents to feel like we're getting a break and the rate can actually go down?
Our power supply costs and our operating costs are broken out, are separate. I can tell you only about power supply costs because I can't speak to our O&M and our and that side of the rate. I know that power supply we're 90% hedged in our long-term contracts. We're only exposed to the market 10% of our total usage, for the whole town. So we are not anticipating any rate changes up or down for the foreseeable future. I mean, we evaluate it every 6 months, similar to Eversource, National Grid. We don't have any risk right now of having to raise rates. We're looking fine for that. Things could really change, and the market, for natural gas could go through the roof, and then suddenly you might see a little bit, but right now it's fairly stable because we're very, very well hedged.
And do we have a buffer, like in case things go up the
Yes.
roof? Like
Yep.
we built in some buffer where the taxpayer are not going to feel it right away.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Can you elaborate on the rebate program a little more? How do we get that?
So I'm going to only speak to the solar rebate program because we have additional rebates for other items, electric related items, but they're more related to the building aspect because it's things that you put in your home.
Okay.
That would be more decarbonization for buildings. So definitely can elaborate that at a different time. For the solar rebate, it's just a one-time rebate where you, if you were to get solar, you would be conversing with me because I'm the interconnection manager as well for the utility. And after you complete your installation, you just request a rebate form, and I'd give it to you, and you fill it out, send it. It's a one-page thing, and give it back to me, and then you're mailed a check. So it's that simple for the rebate.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
Do you have it on your house?
What's that? Okay.
Yes, awesome.
Maureen?
Yeah, so back with that, what Dee said about the solar rebate too, is don't they also get a tax deduction?
They do. It
on
went
federal taxes too.
It's still 30%. We don't know what's going to happen with the
We
new
don't know, right.
administration. But as it stands right now, 30%. Yeah,
So it's good for residents to know if you're thinking about solar.
absolutely.
Contact Jeffrey and maybe even talk to your tax accountant about that too.
Yeah, and I can also say, whoever's listening from home, I can also recommend a few installers. I can't give you the best one. I can definitely recommend some reputable ones that have worked in Danvers.
That's wonderful. And we talked about the schools, the Smith School, Highland School, and the high school. Do you see that Danvers will be putting more panels on the other schools?
We looked at all the schools, and those are the three best candidates. We couldn't. I think it came down to the structural, how much the school roofs can hold in terms of like the structural integrity, and whether if we put a new roof on a building, it definitely becomes a viable candidate. I know there were portions of the high school that we couldn't put on, so that there needs to be a structural analysis done for each school. And I know those three schools were their candidates, but for new buildings, of course, that's why the Smith School building was solar ready, and so we knew we could put it in that school.
Right.
And then we expanded to the high school and the Highland School because they were also candidates.
And we don't know if we're going to be doing some improvements to some of the schools.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
so that-
definitely something
yeah,
that.
so stay tuned with that.
Yeah, if the superintendent wants to have a discussion with me about that, and if they want to move forward, that's.
And just, when you talk about the group purchasing power, right, we get a better deal. How many communities are in that, roughly?
Roughly 20.
20?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
and it's nice to hear that we're ahead of the curve, so good job, Jeff, with,
Credit, but
yeah, well, no, but you and your staff, that's good. Energy is very important for the future. And then just other question about the batteries, like, you say you have this one big battery, just things that like I read about, like with the batteries, so if the battery doesn't work, doesn't the battery become like hazardous waste afterwards? And how do we, kind of dispose of that?
it's.
I mean,
The biggest thing that's coming up with batteries, and I don't mean to be an alarmist, is the fire issue with batteries, and the potential risk, and we're trying to mitigate that now with there's new fire regulations, and that's why a giant standpipe is going to be put in to deal with fire regulations. In terms of the batteries, the Milton Cat, as batteries degrade and over time, as they all do, those units, individual battery blocks, cells, whatever, they are swapped out as they erode. And Milton Cat then will have to recycle and deal with them after that.
okay, good. And because also, like, I don't know if, didn't Beverly put on solar panels and then they're stuck, the old ones are stuck somewhere? I'm just worried about hazardous waste and,
For sure, yeah. I mean,
No.
part of the whole issue is maintenance. We don't own any of that equipment, and that's part of we don't want to own battery. We don't want to get into the battery ownership model, I think, for Danvers Electric at this moment. And so Milton Cat owns and operates and maintains the batteries. Select owns, operates, and maintains the solar panels on the school. And we make sure that we have a maintenance and plan in place, and that, they're responsible for dealing with issues.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for what you do.
Yep.
Energy is very important to us going forward. Thank you.
David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that I think your presentation was excellent because I think I understood what you were saying. Thank you.
That's the goal. Thank you.
I'll second. Michael?
Thank you. I'm going to be that guy. Sorry.
That's all right.
The solar panels that we're going to use at the dump, are we going to own them?
We haven't determined yet. It's going to go out for requests for proposals, requests for information. However, whatever the business model is, it's going to make sense most to the ratepayer and for Danvers Electric as a business operating and owning panels potentially. We went the PPA non-ownership model for the schools because it made sense fiscally at the time, and but we haven't gotten to that point of knowing what we're going to do. We didn't even know up until, I don't know, 6 months ago that we could do 2 megawatts. There was a preliminary study done that thought we could only do 1 megawatt there, and now it's been expanded out to 2. So there's been talk on both sides about whether you own them or you don't own them. I don't have a particular preference about owning them or not owning them, but it needs to be evaluated fiscally about what the best method moving forward is. Yeah.
So when it comes to solar panels, windmills, batteries, my question is the amount of gain that we get from using them versus the amount of cost to maintain them, the damage to the wildlife. For instance, a windmill has approximately 1,000 gallons of oil in it. So if it's in the ocean, that's weeping into the ocean. We saw over, is it Nantucket, I believe this year, the blades came off and caused a big problem on the island and all around it. Cars, vehicles with batteries are a huge problem because they're fire. And the fire departments can't put them out. And some communities have come up with picking up the vehicle and putting it in a dumpster and bury it in sand. Problems can be a battery goes bad in a vehicle and now you're locked in the vehicle when it starts on fire. I'm not against any of these. I think they got to be used in much smaller ways because when I read through this thing here, it says that we're looking to get rid of oil heat, gas heat, propane heat. That's what it says. I know in some communities, if you build a new house, you can't build a fireplace. So that means we'd be totally reliable on electricity. And I think in Danvers, we're lucky. We have an excellent electric company, and rarely do we lose electric. And if we do, they run out there, trudge through the bad weather, and get it working. But again, I don't think the grid can handle it. I read that there's not even enough copper or minerals to stand up to the push that they're pushing out there to sell the cars and all these renewables. So, with say take the one thing, the dump, the amount of land we're going to use for all these panels, in the cost to put all that together, when do we see the return, if any?
Well, it's
because it only is sunny so much every day.
Yeah, it's also not buildable land. It's not buildable land, so you can't redevelop that land into anything because it's already a landfill. It's an unused resource. It's just land sitting out there. And now you're going to put solar panels on it that's going to generate electricity within your system that's carbon free and that is in-town generation. So instead of having to pay to go get the electricity from Quebec, instead of having to go pay and get that electricity from Western Massachusetts and get it to Danvers, it's being generated here. There's a value to that.
Is there an unsafe amount of radiation coming off of these as well?
No, there's not an unsafe radiation. There's no scientific proof around that. I'm not going to get into a debate about radiation from solar panels. That's not why I'm here today. I'm not here today to debate with you about electric vehicles versus ICE vehicles and how much each one catches on fire either. I'm not here to talk about building usage. I'm here to talk about where we get our energy from, and that's what the energy section is about. If you want to have a debate about the building component to this plan, that's another day, another time, and that we're talking about heat pump. You're alluding to heat pumps, and you're alluding to electrification in homes, which is a viable alternative, and it's not for everybody, and it's a personal preference whether you have a heat pump in your home versus whether you have a fireplace or whether you have natural gas or oil. Personally, I don't think we should be burning oil in our homes and putting large tanks of oil in our basements, and I think it's a much better alternative to have heat pumps that are more efficient and cheaper to run. But that is not that's really not why I'm here. I mean, that's part of my job working for Danvers Electric is to promote those programs, and very successful programs at that. And we can talk about that at another time. But in terms of radiation, in terms of solar panels, these are proven technologies and are not going to cause anybody any harm by the whoever lives near the landfill. So I want to put that to bed. So that's it.
Okay. I wasn't trying to debate you. I just wanted to bring up some thoughts.
I am totally fine. We can have another discussion offline as well if you want to.
Bill, you have a question? Your hand is up. Are you resting it?
Again, Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Just a point of information. We're talking about hydroelectric, solar. It seems to me in the past I read...
Bill, will you speak into the microphone, please?
Yes, I will. In the past, I had read something about, I don't know, it's the Bay of Fundy where the tides go in and out very quickly that they were talking about or trying to see if they could create these units that would, as the tide went in and out, it would generate power. I'm only looking to see if the gentleman can offer some information. Can it work? Is it working? Are they even trying to make it work? Or is it not viable? Thank you.
You're funny.
Not at a large scale. It's definitely viable, but it's also like I think it's very expensive to do it. I know I talked to some. This is years ago, up in a National Grid. I used to work for National Grid, and at a conference or some kind of presentation, somebody from Canada, Quebec, had a small scale one that they were able to deploy in like a river, and they obviously can. It's much smaller. They can build prototypes, but that's about as far as I've seen for that kind of technology.
What? Have you been to the Bay of Fundy?
I have no desire, thank you. The comment was made that whatever is done is going to be costly. If we don't do anything, it's still going to be costly. So we're kind of stuck. We're going to have to pay for something either now or down the line. I don't have a crystal ball. If we need to do it, we ought to be doing it now and not later when it's perhaps even more of a problem. I'd rather change a small light bulb than a very large one.
Bill, Jeff alluded to the fact that ratepayers have a very good rate, if you will, compared to other communities, compared to National Grid, et cetera. So,
I'd
there you
like
go.
I'd like to see it kept that way, too.
There you go.
That's our goal. That's our goal. You have one more?
Nova San Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I'm just curious about the long-term reliability of Seabrook. Is it in good health? Is it doing great? Yeah? Great.
Jeff, what did they extend the contract, the life expectancy to?
Right now, our current contract is out to 2050. They're constantly doing reactor. I don't know, I use the word reactor. I don't want to scare anybody, but it is maintenance. And so there's an occasional times when it goes down for maintenance. They actually have a whole second reactor that they take parts from, actually, that isn't active. And so they have a whole second thing that they are able to keep the thing going, the one going. I don't know anything. I guess the next question is what happens in 2050, right? And I don't have an answer to that because we're not quite there yet. I think we would start hearing about extending it again, but that wouldn't come for another 10 years. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Sandy Francischini from Precinct 6. Is this something that's mandatory? Do we have to go to solar energy or no? Can we keep our propane and oil? Okay, good. Because my concern is putting up these solar panels. What is the concern? One concern that I have, if you have it up on the roof, if you need to have your shingles or stuff replaced, what's going to happen with the solar panels? Then you have to call somebody else to deal with the panels and then do the arrangements and, you know, chimney work, if you need some chimney work. You know, there's all these other issues that we also need to address and let people know how to handle that too. I'm happy to know we can keep it, but it's good to have a choice.
So I'll tell you, you can go to Grossman, there's a young man there selling solar panels.
No, we've only done, and I put up numbers, and in 70 residential systems in a town of 11,000 customers is a small drop in the bucket. We offer it as a program to give people an option, just as in any other community that has a utility that offers a solar program. You know, a better bang for our buck perhaps is to go after larger systems. That somewhat our policy. I don't think we're aggressively pushing a commercial program per se. When you speak to, I think more of our impact has been in heat pumps in that side of electrification. And so when you hear about from the plan a goal of, we're just talking about a goal here. We're not talking about mandatory type of things happening in Danvers. The goal is to move towards electrification because we know our electricity comes from and our rates are low. So. Yeah.
Last question.
Bill McKenzie, Harbor Street. I was just wondering, the Maple Square and Danvers Square, what is their use? The new building, do they have solar panels on the roof there?
No. You could
Just speak into the microphone.
Sorry. I don't have the exact numbers. I'm not involved in the engineering there in terms of like what the transformer requirement was or what the estimated usage is. Of course, it's an increase.
Are they carbon free?
They're not. I'd have to see what they're using, what they have for. And I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeff, thank you for coming tonight. Tanya, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. The town manager will report to the board on various items of interest. Rodney?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, a couple items to update the board and the public on this evening. First, thanks for everyone who attended the Martin Luther King event yesterday at the high school, Move Like King. Special thank you to Danvers Public Schools, as well as Human Rights and Inclusion for hosting the event. It was well attended. In your packets this evening, there's a memorandum from Aaron Henry, our Director of Land Use and Community Services, related to notification for abutters. Because I'm not a subject matter expert, if you don't mind, I'm going to read directly from the memorandum so I don't mess it up and don't get in trouble with Aaron. The town follows requirements outlined by state law for all Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals applications. So the permits that fall under this include subdivision, site plan review, special permits, findings, variances, and all conservation filings. They're regulated by two different Mass General laws. The first is the Zoning Act, Chapter 40A. The second is Chapter 131, Section 40, the Concom rules. They require parties of interest receive notice of any public hearing at least 14 days before any public hearing relating to such application. They also require general notice be published in a local paper. It requires 300 feet for zoning and 100 for Conservation Commission. We presently deviate from that standard in a couple different ways to the benefit of the residents in the area. We always run it at 300 feet, so even though for Concom you could theoretically do it for 100 feet, just for staff's ease, all our circles are drawn at 300 feet. We also don't go by the abutter to an abutter standard. We do a full 300 feet. So even though some of those technically may not be legal parties of interest, we still include them in the notification buffer. I think that's all I wanted to hit. But then again, in addition to this memorandum, we've heard some feedback on notification in general. So I think what we'd like to do as a first step is to provide this information, and then moving forward, maybe get together with staff and develop some plans on how we can better notify the community for these projects. I think we just want to differentiate between the legal notification of parties of interest versus general notification to the public in the area.
Thank you. And at our last meeting, we granted permission for 17 Elm Street to block the public way in their construction. And in the attorney's description of the project, it was stated that they notified the immediate abutters. That's not 300 feet. So it causes me to pause and think, one, what is 300 feet, and why weren't the neighbors notified of that project? And why would the building inspector allow immediate butters only to be notified? I assume it's the building inspector's purview.
I'd request permission to follow up on that, because
Please.
if he meant immediate as 300, I'd want to just clarify what the actual
That's what it was
notification
written in
Yeah.
the attorney's description of the project to this board. We were only here to discuss the closing of the public way, but it did say immediate butters. Okay, thank you. Anyone else with any comments? Okay, anything else, Rodney?
A couple more. So again, if it's all right with you, we'd like to bring staff back at a future date to talk about how we can expand our notification efforts.
Thank you.
Moving on, it is budget season, and the FY26 budget season will involve various dates, some of which I'm going to share with you this evening. Saturday, March 15th will be our Select Board Budget Review. That's a Saturday all-day affair. Following that, Tuesday, April 1st, and if necessary, Thursday, April 3rd, we'll have Select Board Warrant Review. Then moving on to FinCom, Monday, April 14th, Wednesday, April 16th, and Thursday, April 17th, we'll have Finance Committee Budget Review. And then Monday, April 28th, and Wednesday, April 30th, we'll have Finance Committee Warrant Review, all leading up to the grand show on Monday, May 19th, 2025, of Annual Town Meeting. Speaking of Annual Town Meeting, I have another update. There'll be for the special town meeting, there'll be a caucus prior to the town meeting on February 3rd at 7 p.m. for one seat each in precincts 1, 3, and 6. Anyone interested should arrive in the auditorium lobby between 6:30 and 6:45 for the 7 p.m. caucus. And also a reminder that nomination papers for the annual town election will be available in the town clerk's office beginning on Monday, February 3rd, for anyone interested in running for office. You can feel free to reach out to the town clerk's office with any questions. And if there's any questions on that item, we're joined, a special guest tonight, of Assistant Town Clerk Stephanie Jaros. This is her first time, I believe, clerking the meeting, so we welcome her, and she can answer any of those questions. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great job tonight, Stephanie.
Thank you.
That it, Rodney?
Yep, that's all. Thank you.
Correspondence, new business, closing comments, Michael?
Right on to me, huh? Okay.
Well, David's not there, so.
Yes, yes. Did somebody tell him that we were ending?
Oh, no.
I'm sorry. I was happy that we had the chief and the district attorney in. It does still leave us a lot of questions to the fact that the laws might be a little bit too light, considering there's more population in all of our cities and towns, especially with the MBTA rules, where we're going to have more people whether we want to or not. And so that's going to create more calls for service. So I just would like to reach out to the public and say, you know, it's going to take some effort if you want to get the laws changed or adjusted or tweaked to get what we might need to get done to be able to give the police the tools they need to do the work that we need them to do and to do it the best that we're looking for in our community. Other than that, thank you for everything, and that's it.
Thank you. Dee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to start by apologizing to the residents who reached out to me within the past few weeks. I did not realize that being out of the country, there's a safety on the email where you can't have access. So it was quickly corrected by the town manager, but I didn't have enough time to get back to everyone. So if I did not get back to you, it was because I didn't have access to the email. kudos again to the HRC for the MLK event yesterday. It was very well attended event, and we heard from residents as to how they move like king in their day-to-day life, and how they try to bring up the legacy of Dr. King. And there were Representative Sally Cairns and Senator John Lovely did give some recognition to former Selectman David McKenna for starting that committee and being part of the beginning of that program. Everybody acknowledged the fact that it's a work in progress. We're all on a journey. No one is perfect. Sometimes it gets ugly, but we have to stick together and continue to do the work. A former and inaugural DEI Director, Jasmine Ramon, was also acknowledged and received the Seed of Hope Award from the HRC as someone who instilled some seed of hope in our community with her short time. So that was also a great thing. Quick question to the town manager. I did sign up for the MMA meeting this week, Connect 351, but I was confused. When I signed up, I wasn't sure if select board members are allowed to attend all 3 days or if it's just the Saturday session.
May I, Rodney? Sure. Thursday's the opening session. You get your credentials. Friday is the session with guest speakers. There's a dinner. Saturday is breakfast and a business meeting at lunch for select board members to vote for offices next year. Have you signed up?
I have, but a couple of things. Number one, I don't know if we had gotten a correspondence about it that I missed.
No, it all comes from MMA via email.
Okay,
And you signed up.
I did.
Okay, so you're signed up for all 3 days if you wish.
I wasn't sure if that was the case because when I
You are.
signed up, and I wasn't sure if I should go to the 3 days.
That's
Or
up to
if
you.
there's anything particular that could be of greater interest to select board members. I've never attended one. I wasn't aware of it. It came to my email. And
Yeah, we should have discussed it last meeting, but everybody gets the email from MMA. It's your choice. I don't know if Mike signed up.
No, I didn't sign up.
No, I did not.
Okay.
Too busy. I just got back from Florida. Work.
So what is, you're allowed to go all 3 days. Is that your question?
Yeah, the question is, I'm not going to go for 3 days. I was just trying to find out
I get it.
what day will be.
Friday's the most important day.
Okay.
That's where those workshops are. That's where the guest speakers are of importance. Saturday, and I very rarely attended Saturday because it's in, it's out.
But there's more to come.
There's the luncheon with the election and speakers from the Select Board Association.
Okay. Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea somehow for us to maybe get that information in the future. Maybe kind of discuss it. I had no idea what it was. I could have reached out, but I didn't realize until yesterday. And it was a holiday. I didn't want to email anyone.
Well, that's the type of thing you could have reached out and asked any one of us. So what is it you're going to do? What do you want to do? You going in Friday?
I'll probably go in on Friday.
All right,
yes.
we'll look for you.
I don't know if I'll put in 3 days.
You're not going Thursday. Thursday's just the vendors and a little opening something, but Friday's the big day.
Okay. Thank you.
I won't be there Thursday either. I'll be here, so.
So I'm going in Thursday in the afternoon and leaving Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Another thing, we got in our package a note from the HRC about the native land acknowledgement, and I know Mr. Bradstreet have mentioned that several times. My suggestion to this board would be to send it back to the HRC and have them meet with the with Anthony Silver and the Center for Native American Awareness, so that if we were to adopt something, we get a seal of approval from them. That would be my suggestion. I think just taking it like, I mean, this is a good document as it is, but I think that getting input from them will be more impactful. That's all. Thank you.
That it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Me?
Yes, you.
I'm next. Don't forget me. Okay. I couldn't attend the Martin Luther King celebration. I was away, but I heard it was really good. Thank you very much. I want to, again, thank the chief and the district attorney Tucker for the updates in the community. It'd be nice, did Jamie say that those dates, are we going to pick one, or is he coming to all three of
No,
those?
all three.
Okay, and I think that's nice to have. Rob, thank you for coming to, come in front of us and keep us updated. Remember, we want to keep our community safe. We also, myself and a few other board members, Dan and Mike, also attended strategic planning at the high school with Dan Bauer. It was really kind of cool. It was actually pretty fun, too. They had, like, magic markers where you'd write your thoughts on big pieces of paper, where you see kids, what will they need within 5, 10, or 15 years, or even 20 years. The technology, it was amazing, wasn't it? It's really pretty good. So I wanted to thank Dan Bauer and his team for that. And I also wanted to give the condolences to the Gesualdi family. I attended, very sad, the loss of Stan Gesualdi. He really was a great, great man. Big heart. If anybody knew him, you just knew him and loved him. And he volunteered so much in the community. He coached a lot of kids. And, just before he passed, I was shocked because I was in Florida when I heard about it. And one of his friends had a hip operation. And there's Stan, before then, plowing the driveway and shoveling the stairs. And Jack's like, what are you doing? Well, we just had a hip operation. But that's the kind of guy that Stan was. So it's a huge loss to the community. So God rest Stan. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go, our assistant town clerk is keeping me on track. We didn't approve the consent calendar. Can we have a motion to approve the consent
I'll
calendar?
make the motion to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a
Stay up
second?
here.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Stephanie.
See? You did it.
Good job, Stephanie.
If you see a vet, please say thank you to the vet, he or she. And with that, meeting is adjourned. Good night, Danvers.